Welcome to In Joe's Kitchen and the butter episode. Today we're going to talk butter. Butter is special, and I have butter here, and we're going to talk butter today. First thing we're going to talk about, what is butter? Butter is made out of cream, and the cream is whipped and then it's churned. Technically it's churned until it separates, and the water separates the water, what is real actual buttermilk separates from the butter fat. Then the butter is put through a centrifuge, which removes most of the water, and you get butter. This is butter in its solid state form here, and butter comes in a brick, which literally looks like a brick. It's a pound of butter wrapped. Comes in a pound block, which looks more like a block. It is still rectangular, but it looks like a wood block. And it comes as quarters or sticks of butter. We can't really use the word cube of butter because this is not a cube, it's a rectangle. And you will find 4 of these per pound of butter. You will also see it in half-pound sizes blocks, like this. This is a half-pound brick this is a European cultured butter. This has lactic acid in it, which is the culturing product. This is a half-pound of the Irish Kerrygold butter. I'm going to sneak over here and reach one other product here that we need for our discussion today. Now, butter comes in many forms. In its solid state form, it comes in 4 varieties. Those 4 varieties are unsalted butter, also known as sweet butter or unsalted sweet butter. Salted butter, also known as sweet cream butter or salted sweet cream butter. I don't keep any salted solid butters on hand. It also comes in European style butter and cultured butter. Some butters can tick 3 of those markers. It can be a European style cultured unsalted sweet butter. Or it could be a European style cultured salted sweet cream butter. This, I said, is the cultured European style butter. The culturing of the cream for the butter, it's for flavor. And it gives it what I call just that mild barnyardy flavor, so it's very complex in flavor. Compared to this one made by Land O'Lakes, which is a creamy, extra creamy European style butter. And what that means when it's labeled extra creamy or European style, it's a higher butterfat content of about 82%. It's slightly lower in the regular butter. As you can see, these 2 butters come wrapped in a foil wrapper, as is this Kerrygold butter here. This one is wrapped in a wax coating, but it's a flavor protect wrapper. The normal butter wrapper doesn't protect flavor. Unless it's a salted butter, the flavor is going to change. So what I recommend doing, if you're buying butter in bulk, take it out of the package and wrap each individual stick of butter. If it's not foil wrapped, wrap it in aluminum foil, and then it can be stored in the freezer and pulled out as needed. This butter right here has a completely different color difference than this European butter right here. This is Kerrygold Irish butter, and it is this color because of what the cows ate. That determines the color of the butter. The other products are tub butter, spreadable butter, whipped butter, butter blend. This is salted whipped butter, and this is a tub butter. I will open it here. This is made by Cabot. This is lovely stuff. This is whipped butter, so it needs to sit out before using it. You will also see tub butters that are in rectangular tubs that are labeled naturally softer spreadable butters or cultured soft butters. Those can be left out at room temperature, and they are sometimes they can be somewhat soft out of the fridge depending on brand, but just leave them out and then they get nice and soft. Butter blend is popular in restaurants. Butter blend is made with butter and margarine half and half, and it's whipped. Comes in a large tub. It's what you see at diners, coffee shops, and restaurants. You see it on your waffles and your pancakes and your toast. I personally think it's half decent, and I will eat it when I'm at restaurants. I don't have a problem with it, but I won't ever buy it or cook with it at home, and I will never purchase margarine. We will not talk about margarine here, though there is uses for it in the bake shop for making layered doughs, like the laminated doughs, to use margarine instead of butter. It's a bit more stable, but I personally don't care about it. The other product that we're going to talk about is tub spread. I have one here. This is the Smart Balance. You will also see Earth Balance, Country Crock, Promise, Benecol. A real old school one is called Olivio, which was invented by Lee Iacocca back in the day, and it contains, as one of the oils in the spread, olive oil. I like this Smart Balance because it tastes delicious and it works well for frying eggs, making scrambled eggs, using it for baking and putting it on toast, and just any butter uses this works well. It's not as rich as actual butter, that's why I keep both, but it's beautiful stuff. Butter comes in another state, and that is clarified butter and ghee. This is clarified butter. It is labeled ghee, but technically this isn't ghee. This is clarified butter right here. Clarified butter comes, as you can see it here, in the container. And what they have done with it is the butter is melted, and the milk solids are removed, and the water is removed, so it's all butter fat. I am going to show you, for our first preparation, I'm going to show you how to make clarified butter. It's one of the easiest recipes that we have, and we're going to show you how to do that when we come back. I'm going to show you how to make clarified butter in what I call the ideal method. Welcome back to the show, and we're going to start with making clarified butter. You're going to use a small, heavy bottom saucepan. It's important here that it's either a heavy bottom saucepan or a heavy saucepan. I've got a small one here. Now I'm going to place both sticks of butter here. And I'm going to break the butter up into two pieces here. I have this burner heating up because we're actually going to be using our heat diffuser or simmer plaque. And you don't want to cut this butter up more than this. You want to leave it in these larger pieces. And that is an important step in this recipe. And I've also outfitted myself with a small cup and our spoon here. What we are going to do this clarified butter properly is we're going to be melting it, and we're going to melt it over very low heat. That is the ultimate secret here. Turn the heat down to very low, And the slower this happens, the better off it's going to be. What we're going to do with this spoon is we're going to spoon off the milk solids carefully and remove them to this little cup. And what's going to happen is once all the milk solids have been spooned off, which we will save, and I'll talk about that, then the butter is going to start bubbling. And the bubbling is the water inside the butter that's cooking off. And it's important to do this over the lowest heat possible because we do not want to burn the milk solids before they are all removed or burn the butter itself. That's why it's a very slow process. And it's important to leave the butter large because it slows the process. Because you don't want to do this process fast. Because the goal here is for the butter to melt as slow as possible. And once the butter is all melted and you start seeing the foam rise to the top, that's when we're going to spoon off milk solids. And we're going to use this spoon here. You could, doing larger batches, you could use a ladle. It would be fine too. It's a very easy process. Because the traditional method is to make the butter and then allow it to sit and the milk solids sink to the bottom, and then you just decant the clear butter fat off the top. I like this method because it separates the butter fat and the milk solids are separated. And then it allows the butter fat to remain in the saucepan. So if you need to use it hot as a, like let's say you're making a sauce hollandaise and you need to use that butter, you can, right out of the saucepan. And then it allows you to drive the water off. And then you're left with the clear butter fat. Get that last little piece melted off of there. There we go. When you're doing large amounts of clarified butter, when I used to make the sauce hollandaise for a place I worked, and we had Eggs Benedict as a breakfast special, put the whole pounds of butter in there, and it was I believe it was about 2 pounds of butter, as well as some whole butter, which we kept for enriching the sauce as well. But it was 2 pounds of butter that had to be clarified in a large pot. We worked a grill, so I did it literally on the barbecue, and I would turn the burner on low and just let it go low and slow. And then you just take a large spoon and you just spoon off the milk solids. You're almost melted here, so we're going to I find this method to be the ideal method, personally. Because when you do it like this, you're separating both products. You're not dealing with something that you have to allow to sit and then the butter fat goes into another container. The butter fat remains in the saucepan, so you could use it for saucing, for sauteing fish or vegetables. But you're now fully melted, as you can see here. I will tilt the pan here. And now is when we'll just start spooning off the milk solids. Tilt the pan. If you get a little of the butter fat, it's fine. Just take this process as slow as you can. And it's important here, folks, I'm doing this on a simmer plaque or heat diffuser. Got an electric burner, keep it on low, it should be fine. But over gas, it's just safer this way to do it this way. And you can use your spoon to pull the milk solids to the side And then just start pulling them out, little by little by little. Just take your time with it. You don't have to rush this process. If you have the heat on low enough, it should be fine. If you do it right, you will end up extracting all of the milk solids. The milk solids themselves can be saved. Great for enriching rice dishes. Adding a little lactic flavor to a sauce can be whisked. I use it when I do the sauce hollandaise, which you will see on my other series, Inside the Saucier's Pans. The inaugural episode is going to be on sauce hollandaise. I'm going to show you how to use the milk solids in the sauce. Because they have a flavor. They have this nice lactic dairy flavor to it. That's lovely. So they can be used. The other butter product that we need to talk about is ghee. Ghee is made like clarified butter, but instead of the milk solids being removed, the milk solids are allowed to go brown. And it gives it a slightly nutty flavor. Like a beurre noisette, but they're very careful when they do it. And you get the clear butter fat that remains behind. And what they will often do is the milk solids that have toasted that are on the bottom will be used for another recipe, like used to flavor rices, to add a nutty flavor. And then they use the ghee in cooking. We're getting very clear butter, as I don't know if you can see this. We still got more milk solids in there. It's just a slow process. And it's important to keep it at a slow process. You rush this process or have the heat too high, you can cause problems. Because you don't want to overcook the butter or burn the milk solids. And like I showed you before, you can purchase butter already clarified. I wanted to show you how to actually do it. Once the butter is clarified, though, it should not be kept over direct heat. If you're going to do a sauce hollandaise, keep it over a pilot light. Or you can even keep it on this heat diffuser, just turn the burner off. We are almost there, folks. Giving it a stir to orients everything, and then you can go for more skimming. Because just take it really slow, and it's super easy to do. You can clarify butter in a microwave, but I think this is the ideal method, because then you don't have to pour it out of what you melted it in to remove it from the milk solids. This is the easier method. I'm going to halt the skimming at this point, and I'm going to turn the heat up just a little bit here. As we have a watery substance in there, as of right now, there is a watery substance. That watery substance needs to be cooked off. It's very important that you don't boil off the water with all the milk solids in the pot. You need to make sure all the milk solids, 90% of the milk solids should be removed before you let the water boil off. Because if the heat is too hot, then the milk solids that are not boiled off are, when you see the bubbling, you can okay. Pull out our trivet here, place another one here so we can place this butter on a trivet. Now that it's bubbling and I see some more foam, we'll go back at it. I'm getting the last bit of the foam rising to the top. The slower this process happens, the better. Okay. Okay. Butter is now starting to sizzle a little bit, which is perfectly fine. Clarifying the butter, you're going to be left with less butter. But you're going to be left with a pure fat product that can be heated to a higher temperature than straight melted butter or whole butter. We are almost fully clarified here, folks. Okay. Alright, I'm going to stop it at this point. This is your clarified butter. last whisper of milk solids off the top. Put it back over the heat one last time. And I'm going to turn the heat all the way down again to low. And let it bubble for just a couple minutes here, just a few seconds here. The last little bit of water is going to be removed. It smells just right. Last little bit of foam is coming off now, which is the milk solids. And if you look at this, it is clear and lovely. I'm going to turn the heat off and let it sit the last second here. Last few seconds of boiling here, which is the water boiling off. This homemade clarified butter, just to be on the safe side, should be kept in your refrigerator. When you buy it from a store, that one is shelf stable room temperature. It's safer if you're going to do it yourself to keep it in your refrigerator. And as you can see here, there's our perfect clarified butter. We're going to stop at this point. And that's perfect clarified butter. It is clear. It has virtually no water left. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to tackle a second recipe. And that's going to involve some Irish butter, which we're going to place in our pot here, which we're going to slowly melt. We're going to make an extremely old school recipe today. We're going to make a drawn butter sauce. We're going to melt this butter here. And we're using the Irish butter because of its color. So that when we make this drawn butter sauce, it's going to be a beautiful color. Okay. Pull the milk solids out of the way, which we will save. For this recipe, we're melting our butter in a small saucepan. This is a butter-sized saucepan. This one is made by Tournas in France. It is solid aluminum. This is the all-clad one that's clad in aluminum with the inner core of aluminum and stainless inside outside. This is a copper model with a tin-lined interior, and it's heavy copper. And this is your classic enameled butter warmer. I have a bunch of these. They're wonderful. If you need to just make melted butter, these are perfect and work just beautifully. The butter needs to be melted for this recipe. Often when you get drawn butter, sometimes it'll look like clarified butter. And sometimes it'll look like melted butter. Originally, drawn butter was a sauce. And the butter was slightly thickened with the liquid, with a stabilized liquid, which we are going to do today. And this is the easiest butter sauce you could ever make. We're going to make a drawn butter flavored with lemon juice, but it could be flavored with tarragon vinegar. And we'll talk about those ingredients in a second. Once we get all the butter melted, we're going to proceed. I'm going to slide this over here while we grab our saucepan to talk our drawn butter sauce. First ingredient we're going to start with is we need a stabilizer. We need a starch. We're going to use potato starch flour. This is what it looks like. I have a half teaspoon here. And the butter that we're using is 1/4 pound of Irish butter. And like I said, we're using the Irish butter because it's because of its color. And I just want to show you our clarified butter. It has virtually no milk solids. It's perfectly clear and ready to use. So we will tack that there. Now to our potato starch flour, we need to add some liquid. For this, we're going to put in 2 tablespoons of water, which we're going to whisk together and get our starch and our water dissolved. Next, we're going to put in is dry vermouth. About a tablespoon of dry vermouth. You could also use dry white wine, would be fine here, but I like extra dry vermouth. Well stirred, yes. We're going to add a pinch of salt in here. Good pinch of salt, actually, because that butter is unsalted. We're also going to put in some black pepper, a few grinds. If you were serving something delicate, you could also use white pepper. The butter is almost all melted, so we are going to proceed. Also going to put in here lemon juice. We're going to start off with a teaspoon's worth of lemon juice. Do not include any seeds of the lemon. If you need to strain them out, go ahead. We'll put a teaspoon of lemon juice in here. Okay, that looks pretty good here. Our butter is fully melted here. And it's important here for this recipe to use melted butter. And we're going to talk about our ingredients that we have used here. We have used water and dry vermouth and lemon juice. But you can also use this recipe, and you could prepare this recipe utilizing tarragon vinegar as your flavoring. And you could put tarragon vinegar in instead of lemon juice. You could use red wine vinegar or rosé vinegar and then use rosé wine in here. A real interesting thing you could do is you could do a champagne drawn butter. And instead of dry vermouth, use champagne and then champagne vinegar. Now we're going to place our pan here over the heat. We need to stir this until it thickens. We're going to turn the heat up to high. We're going to stir this until it thickens. We don't want to overcook it. We're going to slide our clarified butter out of the way and give us a trivet here. We need a trivet here to do the process. We're going to thicken our mixture here. Keep stirring. Take a look at it here. With the potato starch, it's going to thicken. That is the goal here. Starch is going to thicken the liquid. And again, I'm doing this over the heat diffuser here, my simmer pot. If you have a French Plat Cup Diffus, which is the burner that's the flat surface that has all the rings that you can, flat rings you can pull out. That'll work as well. Okay, you're almost there. It's important to do this step carefully because if you have it on too high of a heat, you could cause it to go really thick and really fast. Okay. I'm going to pull it off the heat now and show you the consistency that we have. This is the consistency. Sort of looks like a syrup. That's what we want. Now being off the heat, we are going to go back on the heat, but being off the heat, we're going to take our butter. And we're going to whisk in our butter little by little. Just do it a little bit at a time. And we'll go with some more. Just don't pour it all in at once, folks. It's supposed to do this stuff carefully. Put in some more butter. For this recipe, you need to use whole butter that's been melted and not clarified butter because we want the milk solid and no flavor. And we'll go with some more. So right now we'll add it all. That's all of our butter has now been added. Now we're going to place it back over the heat. Constantly whisking here until we see some bubbles, and that means we know that everything is good, and then we'll take it off the heat. Starch is going to help stabilize this recipe. And this recipe is old. This recipe comes from the 1800s. From the 17th, 18th century. That's what I mean to say. That's how old this recipe is. Okay. I'm going to grab a spoon here just to check the consistency here. Serving lobster or steamed clams, this is a perfect sauce to serve with it. Almost there, and then we're going to taste it for seasoning. And I'll pull it off the heat once we taste it for seasoning. This is the first time I've made this sauce, so we'll be seeing this together and how it works. Maybe in the future it might need a little more starch. This was a fun experiment to try a really old school recipe. But it's going to taste good, and that's important. It's delicious. We're going to put a little more salt. And we're going to put more lemon, because it really needs the lemon juice in here. But it's delicious. Okay. That's it. We're going to halt it at this point. With some experimentation, down the road we're going to take another look at this sauce. Give it another taste here. It's delicious stuff. It's lovely. And we'll put it in this pretty butter, enameled butter warmer here. We're having some success in the multiplication here. So what I'm going to do here is add it in little by little. Dumping it out, I found all the solids on the bottom, so maybe next time actually using clarified butter might work the best, and you could put the milk solids in first, in with your reduction of water and lemon juice and lime. And that'll be when we revisit this sauce, because this sauce is delicious. Easy to make. See, right now it looks like a hollandaise, but I will be adding just a little bit of hot water to this to adjust consistency. And if you get the right consistency, this is perfect for lobster, clams that have been steamed, like the clam bordelaise. Okay. And it's very important here to use that Irish butter because of its yellow color. Okay, so we have our sauce here. I'm going to get a little hot water from the tap. And we're going to add just a little bit, just to thin the sauce out ever so slightly. And then we're going to check for consistency and taste, and we'll check the flavor. Just be careful when you put the water in that you just put a little in at a time, because you don't want to break it or thin it out too much. Horrible consistency is ideal here. See, it looks like Beurre Blanc, but it's downright easier than Beurre Blanc. Okay, that's the last of it. There's about a quarter of a cup or so. And if you look at the spoon here, this is our perfect consistency. That's what we want. Down the road, we're going to experiment with more starch so we can get a more stable mixture. But we're going to pour it back into our little butter warmer here. And I want to taste it yet again. That's mighty fine stuff, perfect for seafood. We made two beautiful items today. We showed you how to clarify butter perfectly and how to make the old school drawn butter sauce, perfect for seafood, and a perfectly easy recipe. And we saved what would have been a disaster in the preparation of the sauce when we were pouring it out. It turned out that all we had to do was whisk some milk solids into the base and then beat the butter back in. So it turned out everything worked out for the best. So until I see you again, goodbye. Bye.